All right, in this video, I'm talking about the illusion of recording and the illusion of being in the studio, what that recording experience is like, and the illusion of what the final outcome is, the final product is. I've recently watched a bunch of videos on by audiophile companies, in particular, Oswald Millsworks, I believe is the name of it. Oswald Millworks or Oswald Mill Audio. I got to get it right. And Fleetwood Audio. They make really, really high-end audiophile equipment, speakers, turntables, acoustic treatment, things like that. And there's the founder, Jonathan Weiss, does a bunch of really great videos on the company and also the philosophy behind making all this incredible equipment. And some of it's like incredibly expensive. I've never experienced any of it. I'm going to try and make a point of getting over to Brooklyn and checking some of it out. But he talks about a bunch of things that I've heard other audiophiles and also even music fans talk about, in that they'll refer to something like the finished product, let's just say vinyl, or even a CD, or even an MP3. They'll refer to, and then they'll refer to like what they're listening to it on, like, you know, some high-end stereo that they have or incredible headphones that they have. And they'll refer to it saying things like, it sounds exactly like it's supposed to sound, or it sounds incredibly realistic. And unless you have had the good fortune of being in the recording studio when these performances were going down, and then we're not even taking into account the overdubbed performance, the recording that is done, let's just say instrument by instrument and track by track. You can't. There's nothing to replicate the experience of one being in the room with a live ensemble, in the recording studio with a live ensemble, or even being in the booth when a professional vocalist is checking the microphone or like singing through it. So like everything that you were hearing short of that is an illusion. I've recorded a gazillion singers, let's just say. I've been in the room setting up the microphone when they're warming up, or when they're testing out, when they're trying out the microphone and maybe seeing how their headphone mix is for them. There is nothing that can replicate the vocalist in the room with you singing in a natural environment and you hearing it with your ears. Once it goes through a microphone and a diaphragm of a microphone into a microphone preamplifier, into a compressor, and into whatever the recording medium is, whether it be tape or digital or anything. Yeah, I guess those are your options, right? It all changes. Everything starts to change as soon as it is being captured. So the idea that even if you have $500,000 speakers, and I've seen these on some websites where a pair of speakers is $350,000, it will never again capture or replicate what happened in that room. It's kind of what I'm getting at. And this kind of go towards, and this is food for thought for like the producer, engineer, mixer person. it's never going to be this, authentic. Everything is a bit of an illusion and a representation and an interpretation. Once it hits the microphones or hits the direct inputs or, is combined with other instruments, and I don't care if you're mixing it on a vintage console or if you're mixing it in a digital audio workstation, everything that you're doing is just another interpretation of this incredible performance that you hopefully captured with a microphone. So we're blessed as engineers and producers who have done recordings or that do recordings to hear these things coming in their purest form, is what I'm getting at, is that's the last time it's somewhat pure, is when it's being pumped through the speakers in a studio before it's combined with everything else, before it's mixed, before it's mastered, before it's manufactured and replicated. That's the only time you're going to hear it in this supposed this is exactly how it's supposed to sound kind of thing. Even if it's a violin player, if you record a solo violin player, if you've ever been in the room with a person playing a violin, particularly like someone who's incredible at playing violin, there's nothing that can capture that with a microphone as opposed to your ears. If you've been in the room with an orchestra, I've been fortunate enough to been able to like step into the room with an orchestra that's getting ready to record. I've recorded orchestras. When you're in the room with the orchestra, that's the last time you're ever going to hear it like that. It's never going to sound exactly or have that feeling that you get in the room with them. This is kind of like why live performance is such an important thing. And then, you're getting into the venues and the acoustics of the venue and things like that. But keep all of this in mind when you're making records, is my recommendation, is that this is all an interpretation. It's sort of like a fantasy that this is what we're feeling today when we're putting together this record, or when we're mixing something or experimenting with different blends of the music, and how loud the vocal is sitting into the drums, and the bass and the drum relationship. These are all subjective, open to opinion. I wish I could kind of I wish I could have a conversation with someone like a Jonathan from OMA, because I'm interested to know where someone would be coming from in that audiophile space. I don't know any audiophiles that I can think of that I could talk to about it, but I'd be open to doing that. I'm not knocking the audiophile. This is their overall, this is their interpretation of like sonic reality, I guess. It's, I could see how you could A/B quality systems and say like, well, this is getting to something that I want to hear out of my system. But you could never say truthfully, or with to be able to prove it, that like, yeah, this is exactly what it should sound like. There's always going to be some coloration of some sort, whether it's the speakers or the amplifier or the room or the how you're feeling that day. What the like I think I said, what the treatment is in the room. It's an interesting concept to ponder and make yourself nuts with. But like I said, we're really lucky to, if you've ever been in the studio and heard things in their purest form, that's the last time you're ever going to hear them that way. It's just inevitable that things are going to change as they go down the chain. And so chasing that imaginary, this is the most realistic sounding thing in the world, is literally, it's kind of like your imagination, in my opinion.